I'm Paolo Cuomo, and today I'm delighted to be speaking with Matthew Grant. Matthew is not only a partner at InsTech London, but he's also a director at Abernite, a company which helps those in the insurance field who want to better understand how to get the most out of data and analytics. This evening, Matthew is speaking to us about the recent life and health event that InsTech London organised. So, Matthew, tell us a little bit about why, after all the focus in the P&C space, that's obviously London's forte, you decided it was time to talk about life and health a bit.
Well, I think we all know, Paolo, that there is a lot going on in life and health. Indeed, some of the early InsurTech companies were based around life and health propositions and have got a lot of publicity and also a lot of funding. It's kind of interesting always to learn what's going on in other industries, and I think particularly for what the cousins across the road, if you like, in life and health are doing some interesting things. So we thought it'd be an interesting experiment to see if we could bring some of the new companies to the London market, even if it wasn't specifically areas that people are working in. It's always quite it's inspirational and helpful to see what people are doing elsewhere.
That makes sense, and I understand that there was a sense that maybe people wouldn't actually be that interested, but it sounds like there was plenty of demand to turn up to the event. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we sold out within 3 days of the event going live. We had full capacity of 270 people. We were delighted, and also on the evening itself, we had over a third of the people turning up who had never been to an InsTech London event before. And I think it's part of the success of what we've been doing is that our events now are getting more widely published or publicized beyond just our events themselves. Quite a few people had heard about it through secondary sources.
Well, that's obviously great, but I think also very interestingly, then you're saying that maybe 2/3 of the people were inverted commas regulars, and they are from the P&C space, most of them. So that clearly suggests that, as you say, there is interest from plenty of people to learn from the other sectors. So maybe talk us through a bit about what the similarities and differences of the challenges facing startups in the life and health space are.
Well, yeah, I think I'd say one of the intriguing things about the life and health space is that intuitively it's a lot easier to see how technology, and particularly the use of wearables and other ways of influencing health, is going to improve health and therefore have an impact on insurance. I think with the property and casualty, it's whilst we can understand how some of the analytics and data can help understanding better analytics for underwriting, it can be difficult to really get a really clear view on where the real value is, and quite difficult to actually convince underwriters today still of the value of some of the analytics out there. But the great thing about the life and health space is that if somebody is, for example, using a device that tracks how many steps they're taking each day, that's got a pretty clear correlation to their general health. And so the question then really is more about how to distribute that, how to get people's attention, how to price the insurance correctly. But fundamentally, it's pretty clear to everybody that there is going to be a fairly high correlation between activity and health, and therefore a lower underwriting risk.
So at a simple level, one could say, okay, that's a win-win for the insurer and for the individual. But realistically, once you sort of move beyond the keen people at the start, is everyone going to want to sort of quantify themselves in the same way and share the data with the insurers? Do we think that's going to be straightforward?
Well, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, that is one of the key areas of determining how successful this is going to be. And I think ultimately insurers or life insurers or health insurers are going to have to get a little bit more creative about how they track people's information. And of course, not everybody wants to be tracked. And in fact, you probably would expect that the less people do exercise, the less likely they are to want to pass that information on to their insurers. So we're certainly going to see an early wave, and we have with companies like Vitality that are providing very clear incentives and rewards for people that are exercising. I think the trick is going to be how to figure out a way to nudge other people into healthy activities without requiring them to wear something on their wrist and disclose all of their activities or lack of activity, day to day.
Good. No, and your use of the word nudge, Matthew, raises a a question that I know our listeners like to talk about a bit, which is the use of buzzwords in the space. So we've got phrases such as quantified self and the Internet of me. What's your feeling? Is there anything from the buzzword point of view that's useful or that's different to what things mean in the P&C arena?
Yeah, we had a few more on Monday, as you expect. So Sentience, who do individual risk profiling, we're talking about contextual intelligence and lifestyle-based insurance, which has even got its own acronym of LBI. But the reality is that for most people who are going to be buying these types of products, it needs to be as simple as possible. And if we get too close to technology and too obsessed by the new words, we tend to actually put people off. So my suggestion for anybody in this space is just try and keep it as simple as possible, both in the words used, but also in the way the proposition is described to the end consumer.
Good. Now, what I know people are talking about is the impact of GDPR or broadly sort of data protection generally. Is there a feeling from the companies and startups that this is going to be a problem, or are they happy that they can overcome any potential issues there?
Oh, hello, I've lost you.
So the question was around GDPR. So are companies thinking that GDPR and data protection in general are going to be a challenge for them, or are they comfortable that they can overcome that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think you could ask that of lots of industries out there. We didn't hear a lot about GDPR on Monday, but the reality is that from a legal perspective, there is going to be a lot of examination of how people's data is being used and stored. And the flip side to it is that we're all going to have the ability to go and both ask for all the data that's being collected upon us to be given to us in a machine readable format, and actually also for that data to be scrubbed. So I think it'll heighten the awareness of what is happening with the data that is being tracked about us. And I see this taking a while to play out. On the one hand, it could make people a little bit more conservative and concerned about providing data when they really understand how much is being tracked about them. But I think the flip side, once it settles down and people do realize that actually they do have control over their data and they themselves can define who sees it, I think there can be some real benefits coming out because that's actually very powerful if the data is being collected in one place and you personally can allocate that to somebody and benefit from it. But yeah, that's not going to be suitable for everybody, and I think it's going to take a year or two before it settles down.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, but it's good that it doesn't sound and feel like that's the primary obstacle. Maybe sort of to wrap up on the questions then Matthew, which of the companies, both that you saw the other Monday night, but more generally in this space, are the ones that are really exciting you?
Well, I think the ones that are the most fun, I wouldn't necessarily say they're the most exciting, but was Stylif. So that was the first fashion InsurTech we'd had on the Steelyard catwalk, and they've come up with a rather clever way of measuring people's size, which you could argue is a kind of low-tech way of doing it, which is they are looking at the size of clothes people order from them, and the more people's size reduces in the clothes they order, the higher their discounts that they will provide on certain fashion brands. So I think they certainly win the award for being the most creative. The one that I thought seemed to be finding a really useful niche was Enables Me, and they've identified that only 5% of SMEs are buying a PMI, private medical insurance. But this is a big issue for SMEs when people go off sick and it takes them weeks to get treatment and they're out of work. And your PMI is a very comprehensive insurance, more comprehensive than it really needs to be for employers. So Enables Me is coming up with an alternative to PMI that will still give people treatment, but actually at a much lower cost. And they reckon that 75% of SMEs would buy some kind of health insurance if it was more cost effective. So I really like the concept. Matthew Reed, who is one of the founders, has got a background in insurance, so he knows the business, and he's actually already developed a relationship with AXA to support him for this.
Excellent. Okay, well that's two that we'll keep an eye on. It sounds like there's lots of other exciting ones out there.
Most people are aware of, and is still worth a look at, is Vitality. In fact, they've been advertising quite widely on the underground just now for a free watch, and if you sort of dig into the details, if you walk 10,000 steps every day for 2 years, you get yourself a free Apple Watch, which is it's a nice, straightforward offer to understand, and actually might be quite useful from health benefits along the way.
Well, that's certainly interesting and could potentially explain the gentleman I saw in a plane recently walking up and down the plane for the entire transatlantic flight. He may well have been desperately chasing his 10,000 steps. So thank you for your thoughts, Matthew. As you said at the start, there was a sort of bit of a risk taking a life and health event. It sounds like it paid off. What else is in the pipeline for InsTech London events in the coming months?
Well, the whole range of different areas. So we're very intrigued what's going on in the regulatory space and in RegTech. I've got a few companies lined up for that. We've been talking to the British Embassy in Israel and quite a few companies in Israel with a view to doing an Israel Tech over in London, bringing some of the technologies over from that part of the world. And we've been getting a lot of great feedback from the show and tell that we did about 5 weeks ago. I think people really like the format where they can actually see some of this technology in action and get their hands on it. So it looks like we should be doing one of those in the spring again.
Excellent. Well, that's great. So thank you, Matthew Grant. Just to check, the best place for people to track you down, I guess, is it on LinkedIn, where you post quite regularly some quite thoughtful articles on InsurTech? Is there anywhere else they should look for you?
Yeah, we should also worthwhile checking in the InsTech.London website, which we are in the process of adding in some quite interesting new features to. So that has the write-ups of all of our previous events, plus some videos and links to all of us in InsTech London.
Brilliant. Yeah. So InsTech.London as a website, InsTech_London on Twitter. And I think that there's a whole range of videos, as you mentioned, that are available at bit.ly/InsurTech videos. So, Matthew, thank you for your time and for your thoughts. Thank you to the listeners. There'll be plenty more podcasts coming up in the last few weeks of the year. And good luck with all your InsTech activities. Thank you, Matthew Grant.
Thanks, Paolo.